What's up, everybody? Welcome into yet another edition of the Baseline Jumper podcast. My name is Jason Goldstein. Live from the 305 is my partner and good friend, Ben McDonald. Ben, are you listening to Pitbull? Are you going to get some Cuban food? Why are you doing this podcast with me when you have the closed down, nothing to do South Beach area right at your disposal?
Yeah, we're hoping to dodge some hurricanes while we're here, but happy to see the in-laws here. This is the house that Flo's parents built, I guess. We have the house that Flo built. Now we have the house that Flo's parents built. So doing very well. And how are you in the lovely Northeast?
Oh, New Jersey's hanging in. We have some storms coming in tonight, so as long as I don't lose power or Wi-Fi, that we can get through this show like a champ. But, yeah, hanging in. Work's busy. The Nets are eliminated now, so I have a lot more time on my hands. We'll get to the Eastern Conference Playoff Series in a bit. Ben and I, as difficult as it is, we're kind of getting used to these somber intros when there's been yet another senseless shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. A man by the name of Jacob Blake shot 7 times by police, and just another one of those stories in the last few months that have really just sent a shockwave throughout the nation, and once again, dire straits, and people everywhere calling for justice. And Ben, obviously it's unfortunate, and we are a basketball podcast. You're not going to get your CNN coverage of the unfortunate shooting here, but it does affect the NBA based on the way the players are speaking out. So, Ben, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what happened to Jacob Blake, and obviously we're praying that he does wind up walking again. Paralysis from the waist down is not an easy task to overcome. I'm a Rutgers alum. I've been following Eric LeGrand for the last 10 years. Paralyzed during a football game, major inspiration. So thoughts and prayers. Hopefully Jacob Blake does, in fact, walk again. But, Ben, I'll give you the floor to touch on this very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in a position to speak too much. I think the number one thing, there was an interview with Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Brandt a little while ago, and I thought he said it best, which is now is the time for many of us to listen, and listen happens to have the same letters as silent, and you have to be silent in order to listen. So I think for many of us, it's listening to voices of others and helping to advocate and amplify those voices. And I just, main thing is I'm going to try to stand for and advocate for a lot of these players who this is hitting close to home, and helping to make sure that their message keeps on going. So for me, the biggest thing is just listening to those voices and understanding this issue better, educating myself as much as I can, and just trying to get reforms so that we don't keep seeing this. I think we're seeing across the board a lot more people are talking about social justice reforms and reforms in the way that particularly communities of color are getting policed in this country, and it's something that we have to work on as a country, and hopefully we can find ways using these tragedies to create some good.
I completely agree. Well said, buddy. But it does correlate to the NBA, because the Toronto Raptors, obviously they swept the Nets, and they have a date with the Boston Celtics. The NBA wasting no time in starting round 2. I believe they play in just a couple of days. But they held a team meeting before practice earlier Tuesday to discuss how they could respond to the shooting of Jacob Blake. And they basically said, maybe we don't play against the Celtics. Fred VanVleet was very outspoken in support of potentially not coming into the NBA campus for the restart. Now he's saying, maybe playing or not playing puts pressure on somebody. And if the NBA were to, let's say, go away, and this is not about money, this is about justice and livelihood here I'm talking, but, that could send some shockwaves. I don't know how many, because not everyone's a basketball fan, but the NBA, they want to do more than just entertain the masses. They want to actually create some real change. You see all the Black Lives Matter T-shirts and masks and, everything these players are doing, using their platforms for good, trying to create some change. And I don't think we're going to get any sort of stoppage in the middle of the NBA playoffs. I don't think the Board of Governors would allow it. But again, the March on Washington is this week, Ben. We've been talking about that ever since the passing of George Floyd. And That's going to be an important day for the NBA. I remember Jason Cordner said they may not have any games that day with the playoffs in full swing. I don't know how realistic that is on a Friday. We'll see how the rest of these series shake out. But, it's tough on these players because they want to be in their communities helping. They don't want to be sequestered in a bubble just playing basketball to entertain and for money and for glory. So, I can't imagine how tough it can be on some of these players, and I'm props to the Raptors for speaking out on it.
Absolutely. And I think, again, that's one of the most important things is that we all kind of listen to those folks and try to learn as much as we can. But as you said, at the moment, it seems like basketball will go on. And I mean, I think we're seeing another team that has protested a bit is the local team. So the only team in Wisconsin in the NBA, Milwaukee Bucks. A few of the guys came out there. George Hill came out and said a few things, and Mike Budenholzer as well. So it's across the league we're seeing folks speak up, which is at least a small step in the right direction. But, Jason, I don't know if there's any way to segue from this topic. I mean, there's no good way, that's for sure. But as you said, and as I said,
it had to be addressed.
Absolutely.
It affects basketball. Yeah. No, we said what we had to say. And now it's our platform, right? We've been doing this for 3 years together. We shouldn't feel bad about talking basketball. There's podcasts, Ben, for every topic, subject, anything you could think of. We just happen to be an NBA podcast. And with the NBA being a predominantly African-American sport, everything that happens to the African-American community affects the NBA, which you and I cover. So feel no shame. Our voices are out there. We're calling for change as well, some positive change. And now, Ben, we can do what we love, and let's talk basketball because another award was announced tonight.
Yeah, actually, two, I believe. I believe they did announce that Giannis is going to be both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, didn't they? I think I saw that, but perhaps it was just one.
They only did. Well, I think the confusion lies because he won MVP last year, so he's just the fifth player of all time to win both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year over his career.
Oh, he's gonna win the MVP though. I mean, he's
right, but because he won it last year, he's already in that conversation. Now he's just going to potentially be a two-time MVP. But I don't know how much you studied the show notes, so I'm going to ask you. There's two other players that have won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season, right? Two of them have done it. There are 5 players in total now that have won it over the course of their careers. So you got Kevin Garnett and David Robinson, who have been MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. But do you know the other two who have done it in the same season?
Of course. Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan. And those were, I mean, incredible players and guys who dominated the 90s when we were growing up in the league. And it's incredible that he's in that same conversation. And it bodes very well for the Bucks, I think, too, because, he is one of the elite two-way players in the league right now, obviously. I mean, I think you have to say if the guy wins MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, he's the best two-way player in the league by definition. It's hard not to say that, right? I mean, I don't know how if he wins that award, you don't put him as kind of the top of the heap for that. So, I mean, it's an amazing accomplishment. And to be mentioned in the same breath as those two guys, perhaps the best two-way big man of all time and the best player of all time, that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, won the vote handily as well. Rudy Gobert, who's a multi-time Defensive Player of the Award winner, came in third. Anthony Davis came in second, but this was no contest. Just the job that Giannis has done on both ends of the floor, most notably the defensive side. The way the Bucks are constructed, I know they've looked a little out of sorts in Orlando, but that goes with the territory of having 4 months off of no basketball. He still has so many good shot creators and shooters around him, and the defensive anchor down low in Brook Lopez. It makes his job easy, but still, with the amount of votes he received, it's no contest. What he does, stifling guys with the basketball, he's all over the court on both ends, and it's so impressive to watch. This kid is literally 25 years old, on his way now to potential back-to-back MVPs and a Defensive Player of the Year. Just missing that elusive championship, man.
Yeah, I mean, and he's going to be gunning for that this year, and we'll see. I mean, they're playing the Magic. I think they're going to close that series out. They lost game one, but since then they've kind of regained their form. But I mean, I do think the one thing with that series, Jason, has been it has raised those questions about Coach Budenholzer's ability to adjust in the playoffs. He continues to have some struggles adjusting, and the Magic have played this team pretty close, and I've been actually a little surprised at how well they've played against the Bucks when they kind of seemed like they should be a speed bump for the Bucks, especially with their lack of shooting. And they've done surprisingly well in spite of not having debatably two of their top three players. I mean, they don't have Jonathan Isaac and they don't have Aaron Gordon, and they've still been kind of taking it to the Bucks. What have you made of that, Jason? I mean, does that worry you as someone who did pick the Bucks to make it to the finals?
I don't know if it's a matchup problem. And also you have the emergence of Markelle Fultz, who no one expected to do much of anything. But Steve Clifford's coaching a young, hungry team, and Markelle Fultz is showing that, the recently fired Brett Brown let him go for absolutely no reason. And we always have made fun of the Magic on this show, dating back to the days of Bismack Biyombo. But they are a very big, heavy team with Vucevic and Birch and Gordon and all these centers and forwards, and just the guard play is something that really stands out to me from an Orlando perspective. And maybe the Bucks are taking them lightly. It almost makes me regret as a Nets fan them not actually slipping into the 8th seed. Maybe they would have given the Bucks a little bit of a run for their money. But no, I mean, look, last year the Raptors lost game one to this same Magic team.
Right.
Gentlemen's sweep, conversation over. I think the same thing's happening this year. The first round for this Bucks team is just being looked at as a tune-up, right? They're getting their T's crossed, their I's dotted, and they're just getting ready to play Miami. And, the hope is now that Indiana's gone and the Heat have swept, that they don't overlook in Game 5 and just think about the Heat. They need to take care of business and then move forward in what's going to be a very competitive series.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about their second-round opponent is going to be the Miami Heat, who just finished off the Pacers. I mean, they swept them. They didn't blow out the Pacers exactly, but all the games were fairly competitive. But they won all the games. Duncan Robinson was an absolute problem for the Pacers, as was Tyler Hero. They could not find those guys coming off the screens the whole series. They got absolutely lit up from deep. And the other thing, Jason, a major roster move in the bubble. Eric Spoelstra decided Myers Leonard was not only not going to start, but basically wasn't going to play. And that Bam Adebayo was going to start at center. And, I mean, it's paid off. And in this series in particular, it really, really paid off, Jason. I mean, they were absolutely gunning from deep this entire series. I mean, do you think that the Heat are more dangerous than you did before? And, I mean, what do you make of this exit from the Pacers standpoint?
Well, from a Pacers standpoint, it's easy. It just wasn't their year. Not having Sabonis is huge. Being a first-time All-Star. He was out, right? It shows how little I paid attention to the series. Maybe you should find a replacement for me. He didn't play in that
He
series,
did not
right?
play. Yeah, he had plantar fasciitis.
Right, okay. I knew I wasn't completely dumb. But, yeah, I mean, Sabonis, first year as an All-Star, I think that's a huge loss. Oladipo not maybe being 100%. He missed so much time trying to work his way back. I think next year they have a chance to be better with some minor roster tweaks. I mean, getting Oladipo, Sabonis, and Brogdon in for a full season along with one of the heroes of the bubble in TJ Warren. I mean, they have a nice young nucleus to contend in the East. Just wasn't their year. I mean, Nate McMillan might be the worst head coach in NBA history with coaching longevity. I mean, he coached in Seattle, Portland, and he's just chilling in Indiana. He's got that job locked up. They don't make too many coaching changes. You saw how long Rick Carlisle had, in the Reggie Miller, Jermaine O'Neal era. So they're good. They're hanging. It just wasn't their year. Now, for Miami, I mean, they must be the best conditioned team in basketball. The program that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra has those guys on day in and day out in the humidity of South Beach, which